It was announced today that the Hunter Area Health Service has awarded its laundry and incineration contract to Brambles Cleanaway and Textile Rentals divisions. They will take over early next year, setting up a state-of-the-art laundry and medical waste incinerator in the Newcastle area. It's just this decision to contract out services that the union has been fighting since it was hinted at last year. But Hunter Area Health Service Chief Executive Dr Owen James always hoped to avoid privatisation. This is what he said last April.
The Hunter Area Health Service has not in any way indicated or expressed an interest in contracting out of services. Our best advice is the other way. We would rather corporatise and perform our own services and provide services for others.
But today he said that recommendation had been overturned by a state government directive. Members of the union are likely to go on strike next week, with continuing rolling strikes a possibility to try and force the government to reverse its decision. They claim the laundry is one of the few services within the health system to make a profit. Dr James says he hopes to avoid any more privatisation of other hospital services.
While Newcastle business people set their sights sky high, a more sobering indication of Williamtown's potential as a domestic air terminal can be drawn from Ansett Airlines. They've confirmed that they've dropped the city from all network operations. A spokesman for Ansett said Air New South Wales, which was recently renamed Ansett New South Wales, had operated a Brisbane-Newcastle-Canberra run for 8 years, but dwindling patronage, despite heavy discounting, resulted in the service being cancelled in October last year. The spokesman said Ansett was disappointed, but now has no intentions of using the Williamtown terminal on any future schedules. On the brighter side, Ansett's departure did make room for Australian Airlines. They immediately started a smaller, more economical 7-day return service from Newcastle to Brisbane. They used their subsidiary Eastern Australia Airlines, which was aimed at the tourist market. Eastern also operates a high-frequency shuttle run from Williamtown to Sydney. Today, a smaller service, Crane Airlines of Sydney, revealed plans to start a limited run from Newcastle to Canberra via Wollongong. And there's another smaller airline tipped to be looking at the Newcastle-Brisbane route. Norfolk Airlines of Brisbane are said to be considering the run, but today a spokesman said it was too early to make an announcement. Meanwhile, RAAF Air Command has confirmed that Williamtown runway is due for a $3 million resurfacing program later in the year. Resurfacing is a routine task carried out every 10 to 20 years. It's expected to take 5 weeks, during which time the RAF squadrons will be relocated to other bases. Civilian flights may be affected, but RAF Command says it's normal practice to keep the runway open for limited aircraft operations.
The Hamilton Masters Pairs is one of the Hunter's top bowls pairs championships. Only players who have won their local club trophy can compete. After a week of knockout games, Bruce Priday and John Gregory from Redhead in the yellow took on Bob Robinson from Wallsend and Alan Winship from Cardiff for the Glamour title and $2,000 in prize money. The Master Pairs has attracted crowds of nearly 2,000 people over the 5 days, with most of those lining up for the best viewpoint inside the clubhouse with a cool drink. Out on the green, Robinson and Winship dominated play, stifling their younger opponents, continually throwing longer ends. After 21 ends, this tactic proved successful, with the Wallsend and Cardiff pair winning 23 shots to 11. The 28th of December was a tragedy for many Newcastle businesses. For the Pink Elephant Markets, it meant the end of nearly 7 years trading in the old store building in Hunter Street West. For 10 weeks, the 25 traders had nowhere to go, but today they were relocated as the new Harbourside Markets in Merriweather Street. While the opening didn't go completely to plan, The traders are hoping they can re-establish the clientele they lost through the quake.
We've lost businesses of many years. We've lost 2 months of trading, and hopefully now with our new market starting up, we're going to get the goodwill and get the people back into the markets.
Meanwhile, in Hamilton's multicultural Beaumont Street, Highland Pipers celebrated the dawn of a post-quake recovery. Local businesses took to the streets. Even Norm was there to get shoppers and shopkeepers back into life. It may not be viewed by everyone as a world-rated event, but according to organisers, this is an elite group of athletes. While some had their own special styles, for most it was simply a case of going for it, and that means shell and all. Part of the Mire Lakes Prawn Festival, the titles have become an annual event. For the 4th year in a row, Fred Monk from Saltash guzzled his way to victory, downing a kilo of prawns in 5 minutes 38 seconds. That's just 11 seconds outside the record. For the more sedate contestants like NBN's Ray Deneen or Mike Leyland, it was a chance to savour some of the area's culinary delights. But for the serious racers, there may just be a case of indigestion tonight. The Prawn Festival continues tomorrow with more fishy festivities.
Here's Roy Earpeth getting closer to Tierney now. In fact, he moves up on the outside of him and frightened hell out of Tierney. Baxter in 3rd place. Past the slower car of Burrows they go, and Earpeth has got the lead. And the fans are starting to really roar for the local boy. He's driven his way to the front. Very nervous he was at the start of the night to try and hang on to this title. And look at him go. Cheer him on. Roy Earpeth, the local boy from Singleton, trying to defend the title, and not many people can put back-to-back wins in a championship meeting, but Earpeth looks as if he might. He's only 2 laps away from home. He's driving nicely. Good tight line. The 28 of Darren Tierney, the Victorian, is second. He's tried hard and made Thorley work hard in the early stages of the race. Now only 1 lap to go. Let's hear a great big cheer for Roy Earpeth as he goes out on his last lap to successfully defend this title, and I think he's going to do it. That's something that's not often done in motorsport, but Roy Earpeth is going to do it. The New South Wales title goes to Roy Earpeth. Earpeth is first, Tierney is second, Lloyd Thorley is third, Graham Baxter is fourth, and Tony...
In the State Modified Hot Rod Championships also held last night at the Motordrome, the defending champion Tony Hopping was not as lucky, having led from the start to the last lap, only to lose his title right on the finish line in an action-packed final.
There's only 2 laps to go for Hopping, and now the challenger is Neil Lorenz from Grafton. Robinson's dropped back to third, Bundy is fourth. Tony Hopping 1 lap away from defending the title. Neil Lorenz is right behind him. Hopping will try not to make any mistakes on the last lap. Lorenz is going to try and have to get him on the outside. Hopping will keep it down tight and low. I think Tony Hopping's drifted up at the last little minute. They come charging to the checkered flag, and it's Lorenz. I think Lorenz has got Tony Hopping right on the line.
In Newcastle today, members of the Health and Research Employees Association decided they too would strike, opposing government plans on privatisation. Last Thursday, the Health Department announced Brambles Cleanaway had won a $5 million contract for laundry and incineration services for Newcastle's public hospitals, saving an estimated $600,000 a year. While the area health service has guaranteed jobs will be safe, the union says the government is selling out to big business.
The Union Service is self-funding, it funds its own machinery, staffing and replacement of machinery, so there's no reason why it should be transferred to the private sector for someone else to make profit out of it.
From midnight tomorrow night, all non-medical staff in Hunter public hospitals will stop work for 48 hours, leaving hospitals without cleaners, caterers, laundry and technical workers. Only a basic skeleton staff will stay on. Area Health Service Chief Dr Owen James says it's a dangerous move.
When you put patients and the community in jeopardy in this way, I just wonder whether the Health and Research Organisation ought to change its name and delete health from its banner, because it's not a healthy way to be.
Do you think it's a responsible action?
Well, it's responsible, for the people of Newcastle. If we can make them aware of what's going on in this health system, the money that's been reduced and the things going to the private enterprise, and it's been proven overseas, it just doesn't work.
Tonight, the Area Health Service has called on workers to break the strike. Volunteers are also wanted. And still on the health scene, plans to reform the operation of Ward 11 at Stockton Hospital were announced today. The dormitory-style accommodation for intellectually disabled patients is to be replaced with self-contained units. While financial details are yet to be finalised, the Minister for Family and Community Services says work will begin within 6 months.
Other Times is, in effect, the winter of the Ninth Doll, set as it is just at the end of the Second World War. The romance between Olive and Rue and Nancy and Barney survives despite the separation of the war years, but they are at a crossroads, unable to go back to the good times of before. It's a first for director Brent McGregor, mounting this Ray Lawler revised version of the play.
He needed to have a look at it, apparently, after the last time it was staged in Sydney in 1985. He wasn't happy with what happened there, with the play and some aspects of the production. So he was fairly determined to change things and make it a much better play, which he's done, and now it's a much finer piece, and I think stands very successfully on its own.
Theatregoers who have seen the other two productions will appreciate the subtle scenery and character changes necessary to carry the chronology of the story.
Kid Stakes is when they're very young. This play is in 1945 when the characters are around about 30 years of age, and in The Doll they're all nudging 40. So it's quite a big time span, age span for those characters to achieve, to portray.
Other Times is at the Playhouse Tuesdays to Saturdays until the end of the month. The question of Newcastle's security against drug trafficking through the port was the subject of debate last year when some customs officers launched a campaign against changes to their patrol tactics. What the government called a more effective operation, those customs officers called disguised cutbacks. Mr Pickering agreed that the customs service needed upgrading, but also that it needed more resources. And this week he renewed that attack. There was little chance of a drug shipment arriving today. Late this afternoon, Nobbies reported a 9-metre swell off the port and closed it to all heavy shipping. Anxious drug couriers waiting on the wharf can go home until there's a change in the weather. But the Minister's comments do place the port's security under scrutiny. So do headlines like this, where the National Crimes Authority claims heroin dealers can just walk off a ship untouched in any Australian port. Statistics on drug fines for Port Kembla and Newcastle released by the Customs Service suggest that if that's happening here, then the drug smugglers are getting away with it. A review of customs operations in Newcastle was highly critical of lax security. The report said ports were virtually open country. Without a means of channeling or controlling movements of people to and from ships, the risk of illegal activity is exacerbated. To this end, the creation of a special response team of customs officers, called CET, was created to target high-risk vessels and times. That's now the system being used in Newcastle. The same report said the introduction of CET is an attempt to implement a more innovative, flexible and results-orientated approach. If results are the criteria for success, then the CET teams must be wondering when they're going to get their big break.
Many observers had a stab at the crowd figure yesterday, the final day of the 1990 State Surf Lifesaving Championships, with totals ranging from 12 to 16,000. Either way, it was a fabulous turnout for one of the most successful carnivals on record. And not a soul who was there could complain about the level of competition, with a hot Ironman field of established stars drawing most attention. Today, sporting the legacy of a night of letting the hair down, members and supporters set about returning Blacksmith's Beach to a scene of serenity. Over 200 volunteers worked tirelessly all weekend to conduct the state titles, and the help and organisation has brought rave reviews from the State Surf Lifesaving Council.
The presentations here last night in the club, the carnival referee, the New South Wales State Superintendent had nothing but praise for the efforts of the club, and I'm very, very thrilled for them, mate.
For the Swansea Belmont Club itself, disappointment in missing out on the state crown by 1 point, but ecstatic at the performances of all club members.
Competitively absolutely magnificent. We're very, very thrilled. A disappointment, as you say, to miss out by 1 point on the overall state championship medal, but with 9 gold medals and quite a few silver and bronze medals, we cannot be disappointed. We're very thrilled.
In a field that boasted many fine horses, Stylish Century was expected to lead, but Cyril Small had no hesitation in taking Vogue to the front. From then on, he ran his opponents ragged, with Better Loosen Up the only real danger. It was a gallant run and a brilliant ride by Small. The Rogue is undoubtedly one of the most popular horses ever to race in Australia, and the Victorians especially have taken the Queenslander to heart. A standing ovation greeted the great champion as he returned to the enclosure, and the connections were overjoyed as Vogue took his racetrack earnings close to the $3 million mark. Vogue started at 12 to 1, Better Loosen Up was at 4s, and Superimpose 8 to 1. Unplaced favourite at 2 to 1, Stylish Century. The Knights were freely tipped as one of the favourites for the tournament, and they started just that way. But the Bears hung on, and this try to Billy Moore levelled the scores just before full time. Extra time was called for with sudden death rules applying, and it all came down to a penalty. Scott Gale coolly took the shot. Meanwhile, at a more leisurely pace, the second BMW International Golf Cup was played at the Newcastle Golf Club today. 80 invited stick wielders took part in the Newcastle section of the event, which sees the winner go on to play in a state elimination before going to Coolum in Queensland for the national playoff. And if his form continues to surpass anyone else's, the lucky golfer will find himself in Portugal for the international final later this year. Last year's event was a spectacular success, and Gloucester BMW are confident this event will be better still.
The 4 carriages are open alongside the AMP buildings in Wharf Road and are open until 6:30 each night. The train is a complete moving history exhibit with early photos of Premier League teams, touring sides and big match days at the SCG. Along with photos, the train carries a wide selection of players' jumpers, from the first Kangaroo team in 1908 and a jumper worn by State of Origin captain Steve Mortimer in 1982 when the Blues won the series. Entry to the train is free, and there are plenty of players on hand to hand out a few tips. Within minutes of its arrival, hundreds of people were filing through the State Bank Museum Express. The train documents 82 years of rugby league history, with hundreds of photos accompanied with autobiographies of famous players and rare shots of an old SCG on Grand Final Day. The 4 carriages hold hundreds of newspaper reports on memorable games and items of league memorabilia, including the exclusive collection of 1900s caps given to state and touring sides. The train is air-conditioned, with the majority of the displays housed behind plate glass. However, the carriages are not just full of memories of yesteryear. Modern-day league legends also share a starring role in their full club colours and life-size caricatures of captains mounted to the walls. Not all the action is on the train. Development officers from the league are only too keen to lend a few tactical hints to the Des Haslers and Gary Worths of the future. These old photos have produced more than a glimmer in the eyes of some rugby league fanatics. It's expected many more memories will be revived before the train moves on tomorrow night at 6:30. Darren Curtis for NBN News.
Christine Berry and Rosemary Morgan are donkey fanatics.
It's a virus. It's growing all the time. It's unbelievable. It's the greatest part of my life. Yeah, and all my friends, most of my friends are donkey enthusiasts also.
One of 30 breeders in the Hunter, Christine has been working with donkeys for more than 13 years. With her partner Rosemary Morgan, she wants to share her knowledge of the humble ass. In 1980, the first of 3 books was written. Now the pair are putting the finishing touches to their 6th video.
This rear view shows up many conformation faults. The Jenny has toes turned out, cow hocks, narrow hindquarters, and poor tail attachment.
While their facilities and equipment may not be professional, their first releases have been box office hits, with orders from Australia, New Zealand and the US. The videos detailing every aspect of donkey care have been so popular, Christine has been invited to the United States to lecture. With 250,000 of the animals registered in America, it could open new doors to business. While Christine and Rosemary have been touted as Australia's donkey women, the 2 mothers, housewives and farmers have no plans for getting big-headed.
It is a fun thing, but that's all part of adventurous lifestyle, isn't it?
What about your husband? What does he think about it?
He loves me.
What about the donkeys?
It's not his thing. He has other interests, and that's good for us.
Today was an occasion for formalities, including an address by Deputy Director General of Program and Planning John Lambert and Hunter Education Director Alan Baird. At first, not all 900 students and 60 teachers will feel the effect of the change. Year 7 will move towards a technology-based curriculum to be followed progressively by senior years. Glendale High School has enjoyed a long association with the adjoining College of TAFE, and that was one of the reasons why it's been selected to join 23 other high schools in the state to become a technology centre. It's envisaged that Glendale will take the vanguard in the state's move towards new technology, but eventually all schools in the Hunter will feel the effect.